Recently, we punched this MDF tabletop with 20mm holes on a 90-degree grid system. In this video, you'll find out why. Okay, so, see this tabletop? Many folks reached out in a video. The link is in the description of the video. I punched this out with the UJK PAF System Mark II. You'll see how easy it is. But I bored these 20mm holes out at a perfect 90-degree array. It's a perfect grid. And guess what it was for? I'm going to utilize these brackets to make this piece to attach here. So follow me with this. It will attach and make a secondary work table on my STM 1800. So now, as this evolves, I have one on this side and this side, and I have the ultimate work table and mobile saw center. Okay, so let's talk about these arms. They're stored right here on the STM. And when you take it off, this is attached right here. And what this is for is to extend the table out, and this usually snaps right in, so everything is level. Okay, it's a mobile saw station. What I am going to do is take these and reverse these arms, and I'm going to put them right here, perfectly flush, so I have plenty of work room. And I'm going to snap this on to take my first measurement, because you'll see this is so much lower here. Okay, so before I continue with my measurement to get my replacement for this piece, I want to cover the brackets. In the description, I will have the part number for the correct bracket. But on the STM 1800, there's two different types of brackets. This one here is for this wider extrusion, and you see the length of this. This is completely different from this one. So in the description, once again, I will have the right one. This one is designed for this wider piece of extrusion, where this one is a little bit thinner, so this snaps on perfectly like that. Okay, so this bracket has this 25 by 25 millimeter piece of maple in there. You can use any wood for this, but we need to remill a piece, because when I take this table that I made and punched out and I butt it in here, you'll see there's an offset here. Okay, I want to mill this with the MDF 3/4 that I have, so it's perfectly or very close to even with these supports. So let me show you how I made my measurement. To get the right dimension of this piece, to make it flush with these pieces here, underneath I have the bracket, and I have this piece of 25 by, this is the critical one, 25 millimeter tall. I've taken a straight edge and laid it out here. So now to the bottom of my straight edge, I'll take a measurement, and it is 22 millimeters. So what I'll do is I'll take 25 plus 22 equals what? 47. I'm doing the math for you. And but I'll also put what I call a little fudge factor in there. I will go 48 and rip this at 48 millimeters. And then if it's not perfectly flush, I can always hand plane that so it's perfect. So I ripped these at 48, but don't trust my measurement. Make sure you do exactly as I've showed you previously in the video and take your own measurement. Okay, next, we're gonna take the brackets off, and it's a posi drive #1 screw. And what I always like to do when I take things off, I put them, because they're very small screws. I mean, you can probably do a different screw if you want in here, but I'm just gonna take these off and put them in a little magnetic containment tray. Okay, so this is a lesson learned. When I first started making these, and come in here, cameraman, you'll see this right here. I have this perfectly milled square, but it doesn't sit at the exact bottom. And then when I took this off, I realized there's little tiny radiuses in there. Then I pulled the original 25 by 25 millimeter piece out, and I realized there's slight chamfers in there, so it does sit perfectly flush at the bottom. So guess what I gotta do? I gotta mill a couple chamfers on the bottom. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a hand plane and just knock a quick chamfer off of each side, and it's this simple. Okay, so I got the chamfer cut. Let's look at that. Bring it on in here, cameraman. See how that fits? It doesn't have to be perfect as long as it fits flush with the bottom of the bracket. Okay, so let's talk about length. The original size I did was 300 millimeters, just because I thought, you know what, it looked good. But I had to pre-drill these holes to attach first, and there's one under here, and there's 3 attachment points. Well, I wanted more. So on this one, I made them a little bit longer. I cut these at 525 millimeters long, okay? And I centered this in the middle, and now I don't have to pre-drill this section first, because now I have plenty of room to do 4 attachment points. So let's continue. Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to get this close to center, and it just happened that it gets to, from either side, it's 200 and 200. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it on the side, and I'm going to attach this bracket to this wood support. So we have the bracket semi-centered on here. I don't have to be a perfectionist on this. The thing I want to make sure is that I use a Vicks bit right here. Okay, it is seated completely flush here on those chamfers. Okay, and it's because this maple's wicked hot. If I just took those little screws and set them in, it may create a little bit of lift, so this would sit away and it wouldn't be flush. Now I'm just going to set those screws in. So now we have to take this to the drill press to create a couple of holes on either side. Let me show you how I laid those out. First, of course, always find the center line, and I just have this self-centering piece right here, and I'm just going to lay that out. Then I'm just going to do the other side. So now I'm going to eyeball a couple of places. I'm not really concerned about, I'm just going to create a couple of crosshairs here and here for my attachment points. So when I chose this fastener, it's a 2.5 number 9 GRK. I took my piece. See, we're gonna countersink this at the drill press, so it's flush. And my measurement came out to be just shy of not piercing the top and giving me enough bite. So when I lift these tables on and off, it doesn't pull away from the MDF. So let's go to the drill press to get that perfect 90-degree hole, but also I got a countersink on here, and I don't want to go too far with the countersink. So let's go for it. Okay, so you can see where we did the countersinking here, right on that line and those crosshairs. But on the bottom, even if we had put a sacrificial fence, sometimes you have that little breakaway in here, okay? So I learned this a long time ago when I was making jigs, and I would put pieces together and it wasn't sitting flush. That little chip out that you have, okay, those little pieces of wood could stand proud. So what I do is I always have a countersink nearby my drill press, and I always clean it up just like that every single time. So removing those little burrs will allow that to sit perfectly flush. So always have nearby a little countersink, handheld countersink, to clean up the reverse of those. All right, we're almost there. I got my brackets on here. I got my wood supports. I'm going to bring my table in just like this. All right, bring it. Oh, look at that. It's flush. Imagine that. Okay, next. Where do we position this? If we can get in here and see this, I look down the hole here. Guess what? I have that piece of wood. I can't clamp anything. So what I do is I choose to put it in between here in here, and I'm just gonna shift it like this. You can set it up any way you want, and I am not getting finicky with this. I'm just using my thumbs from underneath, and I'm getting the feel. This is butted up across here. So now I'm gonna go underneath and mark with pencil lines where my brackets are. So remember, I had this butted up right against here. There's a space here and here. But I have my layout lines I just drew from underneath. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to flip it just like this, and I'm gonna label this as my front. So this is the front of my board. And we know because of that, butting in into, we had a little bit of a gap. Look how these layout lines are just perfect there. So what I want to do is I want to take this and push it back. And I'm going to push it back 10 millimeters right here. And I'll just do the layout real quick. One of the things I've learned over time is instead of just taking this and putting it in a line up and taking my screws, I like to lock it down to the material with a couple of clamps. So when I'm screwing into this, it doesn't move. Now, the other thing to remember is this. When you're setting these screws, take your time, but you don't, if you have an impact, don't run it down because you remember, you don't want it to poke through on the other surface. So just set them flush. Okay, so we got the brackets attached. We know this is the front. One of the ways I remember how to line this up, because it can be a little awkward, is these are my wood supports. I know they line right up here. So what I do is I just take it like this, line up my supports. Drum roll, please. Woo! And there we go. Perfectly even and flush. And that we can snap on and off. And now, when we look at this, we got one massive work table. The STM 1800 is a very versatile work table in a SedgeTool shop. And I believe we made it even more versatile because we have now extra clamping areas. It's a great support table for all my benches around the shop. It's very close for support for almost every one of my MFT tables. So, this may be overkill, but if we really think about it, this folds up into a very small piece, and I can take these accessory work tables and just hang them on the wall, which I will do after this video. Hey, like we always say from the SedgeTool shop, be positive, stay sharp, and we mean wicked sharp.